We rank duos. Now, you know the drill, ranking the best big three from every NBA team. Let's go. Number 30 goes to the Spurs for DeJounte Murray, Thaddeus Young, and Derek White. The backcourt in this big three is really solid. Great defender and a solid offensive player. Then combine that with a guy that can do everything in Young, and they're not bad. 29, the Magic with Terrence Ross, Wendell Carter Jr., and Jonathan Isaac. Jalen Suggs could find his way into this Magic big three eventually, but he's unproven yet, so it sticks to these guys. And this trio has a ton of defense, but not that much offense. Honestly, they're not even really a big three since Ross comes off the bench, but it's Orlando we're talking about, so this is how it had to end up. 28, the Cavs with Colin Sexton, Darius Garland, and Jarrett Allen. This backcourt may not be together much longer, and they shouldn't be because both guys are 6'1" and just too small, but you combine them with Allen and he does a good job of making up for where they lack on the other end. The 27th spot's taken by the Pistons for Cade Cunningham, Jeremy Grant, and Kelly Olynyk. It's odd to rank a big three we've never even seen play, and one where none of the guys have ever even played on the same team before, but they got a lot of potential. Olynyk was on fire last year, putting up 20 a game after getting traded to Houston, and he should be able to do the same in Detroit. Jeremy Grant then leads the way on both ends while averaging at least 23 a game, and Cade can attack and facilitate and probably average 16 to 20 a night. At 26, we have OKC with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lugwins Dort, and Darius Bazley. No matter how good these guys play, we know the Thunder are still gonna suck next year, so it makes this one weird, but they're tanking, so we just have to base things on raw talent, and it's why they rank at 26. Shai and Dort are a match made in heaven, but then you add Bazley, and he's a very young big man with a lot of potential. I don't see him ever being an all-star or anything, but right now he still makes a good trio for OKC. The 25th best big three in the NBA goes to the Rockets for Eric Gordon, Christian Wood, and Kevin Porter Jr. Now Jalen Green could end up in one of these spots, but for now he doesn't. We don't know what he's going to bring this year. Plus, with John Wall out now for the season, Kevin Porter Jr. is actually one of the favorites to win Most Improved Player. And seeing how he already put up 16, 6, and 3 last year, expect huge things from him. I think it'll happen, and to have him with Wood and Gordon, these guys got every aspect of the floor covered. The rebound's looking nice for Houston right now. 24, the Kings with Buddy Hield, De'Aaron Fox, and Harrison Barnes. Tyrese Halliburton deserves a mention, but I couldn't put him over any of these guys for Sacramento. Just like the duos video, I still have nothing to say about these guys. I just really hate the Kings. 23, the Pacers with Domantas Sabonis, Malcolm Brogdon, and Karis LeVert. And this was a tough one. Should LeVert or Miles Turner belong here? Because with Karis, it adds another 20 point per game scorer and gives you a guard, forward, and big man, which is nice. But with Turner, it adds some much needed defense. But himself and Sabonis still aren't fantastic fits together, so there's ups and downs, which is why I left Karis in this big three. They could really both be interchangeable though. For number 22 though, I got the Pelicans with Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and Jonas Valanciunas. And New Orleans trio is a weird one. We got a small forward, power forward, and center, which is pretty unusual. I love the acquisition of Valanciunas though. He's a much needed change up from Steven Adams. Adams was great, but he didn't fit in with the Pelicans. 21, the Raptors with Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, and OG Anunoby. VanVleet and Pascal make a good duo, but then you add OG's game and they level up. I used to really not see his potential too much, but he averaged 16 a game on 40% from 3 last year, while making a huge argument that he should have made an all-defensive team. He's turning into a talented overall young player. I don't think he'll reach star status, but he's definitely a good third man, and it's why he beats out Gary Trent Jr. and Goran Dragic for this spot. Then we go to number 20, and that's taken by the Hornets for LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, and Gordon Hayward. And this has got to be as good and well-rounded of a three as Charlotte's had in a long time. You got the backcourt duo of Ball and Rozier combined with Hayward, who's still a 20 point per game scorer. It's not the best because it's just 3 perimeter players. It'd be better if they had a big man in this trio instead, but for the Charlotte Hornets standards, they really couldn't have asked for much more. 19, the Timberwolves with Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, and Anthony Edwards. You can't blame Towns for being upset at this point. You gotta give it to them, their big three is pretty nice, but outside of these guys, Malik Beasley's really the only other player on the team worth mentioning after all these years, so I know why Towns is angry. But as for these three, Cat and D'Lo are already the duo, but Anthony Edwards really has the opportunity to have a breakout year if he steps up and increases his shooting percentages across the board. His future's bright, and now it's just up to his work ethic that'll determine just how bright it is. Number 18 goes to the Washington Wizards for Bradley Beal, Spencer Dinwiddie, and whoever else decides to step up for Washington. The Wizards' big three is still up for debate based on how the lineups work out and who steps up the most, and things like whether Montrezl Harrell comes off the bench as a 6-man, whether a guy like Rui Hachimura continues to step up, or if Kyle Kuzma goes back to how he played before LeBron joined the Lakers. So it's too tough to pick right now for the Washington team, and I'm leaving this one blank for now, but no matter who their three is, I think they'd still rank here. 17, the Grizzlies with Ja Morant, Dylan Brooks, and Jaren Jackson Jr. I thought about giving this spot to Steven Adams instead of Jaren Jackson, but he's going to be more of a role player on this team. Don't get me wrong, he'll be huge, but he's going to be someone that dominates in his own way down low, while Jaren Jackson actually fits into this big three. We have to assume that if he can stay healthy though, which is something he's yet to do, but if he can, the Grizzlies definitely have one of the more underrated big threes out there. 16, the Knicks with with Kimba Walker, Julius Randle, and RJ Barrett. Walker and Randle make a good 1-2 punch, but RJ makes them an extremely well-rounded trio. I considered Fournier, Robinson, and even Derrick Rose for this spot, but no one fit in as well as Barrett, because he's becoming a great two-way player and will probably lead the Knicks in three-point percentage by the looks of things next year. The sky's the limit for him, and his game's coming along pretty nicely. Then next up, we got the Mavericks at 15 for Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis, and Tim Hardaway Jr. And the Mavs are the rare big three where one of the members comes off the bench. But Hardaway's without a doubt Dallas's third best player. He plays great with Luka, and he might be a sixth man, but he's always there to close out games, and for the fact that he gets on hot streaks like he does, he's the perfect complement to this duo, at least on offense. They would rank higher if they had a more reliable defender though. Then we have the Heat at 14 for Kylari, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. How good these guys are is yet to be seen. They have a lot of potential as a group though. It may hurt them that Kyle's the only reliable shooter, but it's also just what this three needed. They had potential last year, but they were missing something, and I think Lowry was exactly what that was. I expect this team to be led by these three and be a top 4 in the Eastern Conference. Number 13, the 76ers for Seth Curry, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. Again, not including Simmons in this trio because he's not even going to be playing for Philly, so we had to give it to Seth Curry, and he's a solid replacement. He's like the opposite of Ben Simmons. Not the best defender, but can shoot really well. And one of the reasons I had to rank these guys this high is because Joel might have another breakout season this year. He's been very public talking about how Ben Simmons has been holding him back on the court, and now he won't have to space the floor for him anymore. He won't have to clear out to give him opportunities, and he can just solely focus on dominating. So expect big things from Philly. Number 12, the Blazers with CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard, and Yusuf. I don't even want to finish it. They've had the same trio for years. Nothing new, nothing exciting. I just got nothing to say. Number 11 though is exciting because we have the Bulls with Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball, and Nikola Vucevic. Again, DeMar DeRozan doesn't get included here because it'd be kind of weird to have basically 3 guards as their big 3, but I rank these guys slightly over Portland because sure, Dame's better than LaVine, but they're pretty similar in terms of scoring. As for the other two though, I'd rather have Lonzo than CJ, and I'd rather have Nikola over Nurkic, so they got a better 2 out of the 3, so I rank them ahead. At number 10, the Hawks trio was a little harder to come up with Trae Young, John Collins, and DeAndre Hunter. Honestly, there were so many options on who I could have put in DeAndre Hunter's place. I could have put him, Clint Capella, for how well he plays off of Trae and off John Collins in the front court, or I could have put a guy like Bogdanovich for how good he is on the floor with John and Trae. But I think Hunter fits best because he provides the defense that they need. Trae and Collins are nearly unstoppable on offense, though they need a little push on the other end to really make this big 3 what it deserves to be. And speaking of defense, a lot of that comes with number 9 in the Celtics for Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart. Brown and Smart are 2 top-tier defenders, and the Celtics have both in their top 3 players. And every year these guys are just a middle-of-the-road, above-average group, but they're getting better and better every season, and pretty soon, maybe even this year, they're going to be scary. At the rate they're all improving, soon their stats are going to stop getting better every year, and instead they're going to be working on how to win games. They're all 27 and under and are already a top 10 big 3 right now, so it says a lot. But then you gotta love number 8 in the Utah Jazz with Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, and Mike Conley. So I almost put Jordan Clarkson into Mike Conley's place. He's been more reliable, less injury prone, overall a better scorer, and provides energy for this team even though he comes off the bench. Some people could argue he's the 3rd best player on the squad, but I just kept it as Mike because let's not forget he brings wins. When he came in, this Utah team really took a turn for the better, and if he can stay healthy all year, then he will deserve this spot. Then we go to my favorite big 3 of the video and in the entire NBA, and that's number 7 with the Nuggets and Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Nikola Jokic. Murray and Jokic are one of the top duos, so adding MPJ only makes them better. I just really like all 3 of their games, and they're not your standard players. They all have their own style. I don't know about Porter getting a max contract already though, but I guess it makes sense. If they didn't do it, some other team would have taken that risk, so they had to. Number 6, the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Eric Bledsoe. I mean, these guys dropped a little because of Bledsoe's inclusion. He fits in good here. He has all the defense Pat Beverly had and is a lot better on offense, but he's still not the best offensively, but at least Kawhi and PG more than make up for that. Kawhi is always consistent. The only problem from this Clippers squad is you don't always know what you're going to get from Paul George, but altogether they're still serious contenders. And so is number 5 in the Suns with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton. Some of these big 3s, especially the newer ones, are still up for debate if they'll actually work as a unit, but we know for a fact that these guys do, and because they have 2 guard and a big man, it's why they rank higher than a team like the Clippers who just have 3 perimeter players. At one point I was a little worried for DeAndre Ayton and how good he'd really be after he didn't really improve last year during the regular season with Chris Paul, but since then they've all proven that they've got the chemistry and everything else figured out now, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the finals yet again. Number 4, the Warriors with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson, and you wouldn't really be surprised to see these guys in the finals either. Steph's playing as good as he ever has these days, Klay will come back better than ever, and Draymond's dropped off a bit, but I still expect them all to come back to near full force form, not even to mention Iguodala's back on the roster. And now led by these three, the Warriors are going to either come out dominating like the old days or they'll be an above average playoff team. Either way though, I think we'll get our answer to that very early on. Number 3, the Lakers with Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and Russell Westbrook. LeBron and AD had a great thing going, and I think Russ is without a doubt gonna step aside more than he ever has in his career so they can do their thing. But there's still gonna be those moments he tries to be the hero and it'll cost them. And his shooting percentages are gonna be an issue here. Overall though, as you can tell, I don't think it'll be too serious of an issue based on the fact that I still have them ranked this high, because even if Westbrook completely flops, LeBron and AD will still carry them. Number 2, the Bucks with Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Giannis. How could I not rank these guys in at least number 2 though? Not the flashiest, but with the way they performed all as a unit in the playoffs, it was a work of art. The way Drew controlled the tempo, Chris hits a countless amount of big shots, and Giannis dominated whenever he was able to, instantly bumped these guys up to being one of the best trios in the league, but they still weren't enough to beat out number 1, which obviously goes to the Nets for Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. Say what you want about them, but if they were all healthy last postseason, I don't think they would have been stopped. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe, and I'm out.